Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In this video, I would love to talk about histamines, or more specifically, how I manage my histamine intolerance. So for those who don't know, let's talk about what histamines are. Well, histamines are a chemical that the immune system in the body releases when there is a foreign invader, a threat of some sort, something that the body has labeled as a foreign substance that shouldn't be there. This happens when you have an allergic reaction, whether it to be food, environmental, happens with sensitivities, any type of like chemical exposure, environmental exposure, stuff like that. So the body basically releases histamines to activate the response to get these things out of the body. Histamines are not a bad thing. What turns into a bad thing is when the body is either flooded with too many histamines or the body is unable to break down histamines in a timely manner. And that's where histamine intolerance come in. So histamine intolerance is basically either there's too many histamines in the body due to the food you eat, environmental factors, chemical exposures, whatever, or your body is unable to break down histamines, either due to a nutrient deficiency, some other sort of problem, like maybe a genetic problem or stuff like that. So that is my basic understanding, my layperson understanding of what histamines and histamine intolerance is. I will link below to a more scientific video if you want to know more about the science about what these things are, but I'm not a doctor, I am not a scientist, so that's basically how I understand these things. But yeah, this video, I just want to talk about how I manage my histamine intolerance. And just like I said, I am not a doctor, I am not a medical professional, so I am just going to share my experience with histamine intolerance and how I treat it, how I manage it. Please do not take this as medical advice. It may give you some ideas, but definitely consult a doctor or a medical professional or do your own research before embarking on a new type of protocol or healing modality. So yeah, when did I start dealing with histamine intolerance? It was definitely, I want to say 2020, 2021. So we were in the middle of the pandemic. During this, I was eating keto at the time and I was just getting really frustrated because I would react to basically everything that I ate. And I would get like runny nose, scratchy throat. Sometimes I would get prickly tongue. Sometimes my brain would just basically just turn off, brain fog. And it was just really, really frustrating. And then it all came to a head when I started getting swollen joints. My joints became all red and swollen and it freaked me out. And so I contacted my functional naturopathic doctor and she was like, oh, these are probably histamines and you probably have some sort of histamine intolerance. And I'm like, great. So that started my journey into figuring out how to manage all this, how to deal with this. I mentioned that I was keto at the time, and one of the reasons I'm now eating carnivore, and one of the reasons that I went carnivore was because I was just fed up with whittling down my list of all the plant foods I could eat. Because basically all the foods that I reacted to were plant foods. So I was just getting frustrated with reacting to everything that I ate. So I was like, I'm gonna go carnivore and see how that went. And honestly, it was probably one of the best things I could have done to help with my histamine intolerance. It definitely did not cure the problem, as I'm still dealing with it, but it definitely calmed down my immune system enough so I can actually deal with my life. My body would actually have a chance to actually deal with the histamines. I wasn't giving it such a huge load to deal with. So carnivore was definitely very helpful for that. As I continue with the carnivore diet, I've learned that I needed to tweak it a little bit compared to what most people do on the carnivore diet just to continue to manage my histamine intolerance. And I will definitely get to that in a little bit. When I talk to people about histamine intolerance, because I like to share my experience and what I do, because a lot of people deal with this and it's hard to know what to do. A lot of people don't have doctors and stuff, so that's why I like talking about it. But the one thing I always say is you need to figure out your root cause problem. So why are you having a problem with the histamines? Why are you having histamine intolerance? Is it because you're giving your body too much of a load for it to handle? Either by eating the foods you shouldn't be eating, living in a moldy house, living in an environment where you're reacting constantly to it. Is that the reason? Is it just your body just has a too big of a load to handle? Is it that? Or is it more of your body is not equipped to break down the histamines itself? So do you have a nutritional deficiency? Do you have a genetic issue that is causing problems that won't let your body produce the stuff needed to break down the histamines? So I always tell people you need to figure out your root cause. So for me, most likely, me and my doctor have not really dived really that big into this because I have other problems that are kind of more pressing in the matter. And so this is more like conjecture. Is that the right word? My guess. And my doctor does agree with me. We would need to do more testing, which both of us don't really see the point in, at least until I deal with my other problems. So my supposed root cause problems are a nutritional deficiency. I am low in copper. Copper is very important for your body to produce DAO, which is a substance that helps break down histamines within the body. And so I have low copper levels, which is probably contributing. And so I am dealing with that by eating a lot of meat, doing carnivore, and I also take beef liver supplements to give me some more copper. And that has been getting better there. But I think that is definitely contributing, but I think the biggest problem is that I have a lot of gut problems. And so I have gut dysbiosis, which means my gut bacteria is in balance. And I probably have a high load of histamine producing bacteria in my gut, which is probably causing problems. So the histamines within me are high. It's not because I'm ingesting a ton of it. It's just more like the bacteria within me is producing all the histamine, which is causing my problems. So I'm pretty sure my gut is contributing highly to my issue. And I've been trying to deal with that for the past 3-4 years. And it is improving, but it is a slow process. So for me, those are my two issues that are probably my root cause. And so you definitely need to figure out what your root cause is, because that will give you an idea on how to treat and how to manage and how to approach it without just blindly throwing supplements or protocols or diets or whatever at it. So yeah. So let's talk about symptoms. So what symptoms do I have when I'm having a histamine flare? Well, I have two different groups of symptoms, and it depends on what I'm reacting to. So if it's environmental, so for example, pollen or dust or mold, or if I eat plants, I'm usually getting runny nose, stuffy nose, a lot of sinus congestion, and then I get scratchy throat. So the typical response that you would think when you're having an allergic reaction. Sometimes my eyes get watery, my eyes might get itchy, and those are the symptoms that I get for those things. But then there's another group of symptoms that I get, especially if I eat high histamine meats, so pork, seafood, canned meats, processed meats, all that jazz. And these are kind of weird symptoms that most people wouldn't attribute to being part of their histamine intolerance, but I'm glad I figured it out because I was like, whoa, because it was very confusing for a while. So the symptoms I'm talking about was brain fog. My brain would literally shut off. And then I would get prickly tongue, and then I would get really anxious. And then sometimes my heart rate would just go through the roof. It was just my body was almost having a nervous breakdown. That's kind of how it felt with a prickly tongue. And you wouldn't attribute that to a histamine intolerance. Most people don't. But yeah, that is also part of my histamine intolerance, histamine flare response. And I'm glad I figured it out. So I definitely stay away from those high histamine meats because having your brain turn off in the middle of the day is really not fun. Not fun at all. So yeah, those are the symptoms that I get when it comes to my histamine intolerance. So yes, let's get down to how do I deal with this histamine intolerance. I don't expect to have to deal with this forever. I just need to do a lot more healing before I can eat normally again, probably. But yeah, so how do I manage? So the biggest thing that has helped manage my symptoms is definitely my diet. Like I said before, I went from the keto diet with a lot of plants to the carnivore diet with basically no plants. And that has definitely reduced the histamine load I put inside my body. Like I said, I'm dealing with bacteria that's producing histamines. Any way that I can reduce the load coming in has definitely helped calm things down so I'm not triggering my immune system to have a reaction constantly over and over and over again. That is really, really, really important. So basically, I reacted to a ton of plants, so the plants are gone at this point. If you're not carnivore and you're eating more plants, there are lists online of high histamine or histamine liberating plants that you should avoid. Maybe I'll put a link to a list down below. I don't really want to talk about it because I don't remember all the plants that I reacted to because I've been on carnivore for a while. So yeah, and since I'm carnivore, I'm not really doing plants anymore. So let's talk about the meats. So there are meats that I don't eat just because they are very high in histamine. These include pork, seafood, eggs. Eggs are technically not a high histamine food, but it's been known to be a histamine liberator for some people. The jury is out on that. The science is not really, confirmed that, but a lot of people say they feel better when they remove eggs, and that is definitely me. And then dairy. Dairy is another one that I need to avoid due to histamine. So that kind of covers a lot of foods on the carnivore diet. So I basically only eat ruminant meats and poultry at this point. And yeah, that is a bit restrictive, but I want to feel my best, and that's what's happening. So I avoid those meats. I also avoid canned meats, cured meats, and then processed meats. Anything that's been sitting out for a while just to produce flavor or been in a can for a really long time, that kind of lets more histamines develop on the meat, and I react so much to those as well. And so I have to eat the freshest of the fresh meat in order for me not to have symptoms. And so, as you can imagine, that creates a little bit of a logistic problem sometimes. And so, yeah, so I buy meat at the store and I do buy it fresh. Sometimes I buy it frozen depending on what's there, but I do buy it fresh. And when I do buy it fresh, I bring it home and immediately freeze it. I portion it out in the portions that I need to do for my meals, and then I freeze it. Because histamines can develop on the meat even when it's in a fridge, at fridge temperature. But when you freeze the meat, that definitely slows down the histamine developing activity significantly. So that is what I do. So I always eat fresh, or I eat from frozen, or I eat freshly thawed meats. So I got to keep the histamine producing stuff low. And so that also means that I can't eat leftovers. So I try to cook as much as I need in that meal only. And if I do happen to have leftovers, if I want to eat it again, I freeze the leftovers and then thaw it out the next day, or I let my husband eat it, which has been known to happen a lot. He's kind of like the leftover person because he has no problem with this whatsoever. So that is what I do. Some other considerations that I don't really do because I haven't really had an issue. Some people are very sensitive to ground meats just because the processing of it allows the meat to oxidize a little bit more with the air, which produces more histamines. I don't have a problem with that. I used to make sure all my ground meat that I buy was frozen from the get-go. But now, as long as I freeze it as soon as I come home, I don't really have a problem. And that's probably because I've healed a bit. So that's great. But if you're super sensitive, definitely stay away from the ground meats from the store, grind it yourself or get it like super, super fresh and flash frozen if possible. And then some people can't even do aged meat. And so most beef in the United States is aged for, I don't know how long, but it's aged for a good period of time before it gets to the store. And some people cannot handle that. There are butchers out there that do sell unaged meats. So if you are super sensitive and need to go that route, you can definitely find some unaged meats out there. But yeah, I haven't really had a problem. You know, I would probably feel better if I went that route, but honestly, I don't need to. And honestly, that overwhelms me. And if I don't need to do it, then I'm not going to do it because I have enough stress diet-wise in my life as it is. I'm just going to do what I need to do in order to be able to function. So maybe one day I will need to get that far just to heal, maybe for a short time to actually heal some more. But right now, that's not what I'm doing. But yeah, that's it. I'm pretty sure diet-wise. So now let's talk about supplements. Once again, not a doctor. These are not recommendations for me. This is what I do under the guidance of my doctor and the research that I've done. So yeah, so the first thing that I take is kidney. And these are both kidney, just two different brands. This is the One Earth brand, and then this is the Ancestral Supplements brand. And this is basically just freeze-dried beef kidney. And why am I taking this? Well, kidney, whether it comes from pork or whether it comes from beef, has DAO in it. And as I mentioned before, DAO is needed to help the process. It's an enzyme that helps you break down the histamines in the body. And whether you're unable to produce your own enzyme, DAO enzymes, or you just have too much in your body, too much histamine in your body, supplementing with kidney does help you, give you the DAO needed to help you with that process. So kidney is one supplement that I take. And then another supplement that I take is quercetin. I think that's how you say it. This is the supplement that I do. It is a combination supplement. It's Designs for Health brand. It's quercetin and nettles. Nettles brings a lot of vitamin C into it. Quercetin is really, really nice because it helps calm down the immune system when it's like overreacted and stuff like that. Quercetin is really easy to find over the counter. I don't know what else people use it for, but yeah, quercetin this has probably been the best thing that I could take. I used to try to just manage with just kidney and the other thing I'm going to show you, but quercetin, when I added quercetin in, it definitely took the edge off, for sure. So I take this as well. And then I also take a vitamin C supplement. This is a whole food vitamin C supplement. I don't want to take any of those synthetic vitamin C's because first of all, they're highly degraded, so you're not getting that much vitamin C. And second, is usually derived from corn and other things that I don't want a lot of in my body. So yeah, this is the Essential C Complex from Paleo Valley. And so this is another thing. Vitamin C is a great antihistamine. It helps calm the immune system and everything. So I take that as well. So just to recap, I take kidney, beef kidney, the quercetin, and then the vitamin C. And those are the three supplements that I take regularly. I take these every day to help manage. And then every now and then I try to reduce my dose of these one at a time. I try to reduce my dose to see if I still need the dose that I am doing. I'm not going to tell you dosages because that's an individual thing. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving medical advice. So yeah, you just need to figure out how much you want if you're going to use these supplements. So yeah, every now and then I try to reduce my dose and see if I can do it. And I just recently reduced my beef kidney, which is encouraging to me. It was only by like a little bit, but I'm like, that's less than I need. And so hopefully I will be able to continue to reduce. And then maybe one day I won't need them at all as soon as I heal. Okay, let's talk about medications. So these are 2 over-the-counter medications that I use only when I'm having a really bad histamine flare. And that usually only happens when either I'm not on top of eating well or there are just external environmental factors that I just can't control. So like right now, the corn is being harvested around my area, and that is not a great time for me. For sure. So I only take these when I absolutely need them. I'm absolutely uncomfortable, my nose is stuffed up, can't breathe, or my brain just doesn't work. This is the generic form of Zyrtec. It is cetirizine hydrochloride. So yeah, generic version of Zyrtec. Go for the name brand if you want. This works just fine for me. I usually only take Zyrtec during the day because this doesn't turn my brain all loopy and I can still function without being too tired. So I usually try to only use this during the day, so morning, afternoon. And then the other antihistamine that I use over the counter is the generic form of Benadryl. Get the name brand if you want. This is diphenhydramine. Yes. These names of medications, oh my goodness, but yeah. And this is only taken in the evening, right before bed if I need it, because this knocks me out. This makes me so sleepy, so tired. So yeah. So yes, over-the-counter medications, I try not to use these every day because I don't feel well, and then after a while they just stop working. So these are only used in emergencies. I know there are some people that take these every day. When I first started having histamine problems, I used to take these every day just to calm things down. But now, since I got my supplement regime under control, this is just used as backup at this point, which is great because I don't like taking medication if I can help it. So, but yeah, that is what I do supplement wise. Once again, not medical recommendations from me, not a doctor. You got to figure out your own protocol and consult a doctor and do your own research. I've probably mentioned this a couple times already in this video, but along with diet and along with medications and supplements, there are some environmental concerns that is helpful in dealing with histamine intolerance. Limiting your exposure to pollen as much as possible. So staying indoors on high pollen days, not bringing pollen inside, in like flowers and stuff like that. Just making sure if you're sensitive to pollen, try to limit that exposure as much as possible. Dust can also be a problem, so making sure that your home is clean, or as clean as you can be as much as possible. So I vacuum and sweep regularly. I dust regularly just to keep things. I also have an air purifier, which also helps. And then another consideration would be mold. So making sure that first, you're not living in a really moldy building. And then second, just keeping up with the cleaning, especially in the bathrooms and the kitchen, so you don't have mold. Air purifier also helps with that as well. So just keeping your environment as clean as possible and reducing your exposure to things that are out of your control, like, pollen, smoke, chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, everything that shouldn't be in the body, trying to reduce your exposure as much as possible definitely helps, as for sure. But I'm pretty sure that diet is probably the hardest hitting thing for sure. And then using supplements and medications to support, and then making sure that you live in a clean environment. And all those things have helped me get to a place where I can function with my histamine intolerance. So yeah, now that I've talked about all this, you're probably wondering if I've seen improvement since I've went carnivore. And I'm seeing improvement in the fact that I've figured out how I need to manage it. I have figured out what I need to do, which is great because it's always a trial and error from the get-go. And I probably haven't really I think it's only been this year that I figured out what I've actually need to do, like a couple months ago, because I was constantly trying to experiment and see what was happening. So yeah, I have figured out for sure what I need to do in order to manage my histamine intolerance, and I'm addressing the root causes, which is great. And I have seen small improvements. I was able to reduce my dose of the beef kidney, like I said, and my copper levels are increasing, which is great. We're still working on the gut stuff, and that's probably going to take a little while too as well, but I am seeing small improvements. I don't need to be as careful sometimes with my diet. I'm able to eat a high histamine food occasionally if I wanted to, or if I needed to in emergency and stuff like that. It can happen. It's not like immediate game over. That's for sure. So So I'm seeing improvements there. I'm not to where I want to be. Obviously, I want to be able to get off the supplements if at all possible, or at least be able to take just a very low dose, because I'm taking very high doses of all these just to function at this point. And so I would love to be able to reduce that at least to a minimum if I have to, or completely eradicate them if possible. But that's going to need a bunch more healing to come. So I just need to be laser focused and focus on my 2 root causes and improving that and staying carnivore and keeping my immune system calm, and eventually I will get there. So it's not all doom and gloom. It is a bit frustrating. If you've been in this boat, you definitely know that it is a bit frustrating for sure. But I choose to be optimistic, and I do see hope at the end of the tunnel. But if I see any drastic improvements, I will definitely come back and let you know. But yeah, this has turned into a really long video. Maybe I'll be able to edit it down. So if it's not a long video, yay, I was able to edit it down. But yeah, I just wanted to share my experience with histamine intolerance. I'm on like 2 different carnivore groups online, and at least on one of them, I'm always talking about histamine intolerance because everybody seems to be talking about it and stuff. So I'm always like sharing, because it's like, I know how hard it was for me to get to the answers I needed. So I definitely want to share. And so hopefully this video will get to the people that need it most. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative enough for you. If you have any questions, definitely comment them below. Remember, I can't give a medical advice because I'm not a doctor, but I can talk more about my experience. So if you have any questions about my experience, I'll be glad to answer them as well. And if you have histamine tolerance as well, and you want to share how you manage your histamine tolerance and maybe talk about how sensitive or not sensitive you are compared to me, definitely share your story down below. I would love to hear your experiences as well, and it will definitely help whoever watches this video. So yeah, so that is it for today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everybody.